Hey, and welcome to this review. This review is going to basically teach you how to use the LiquidVPN client. I'm going to teach you about the different servers that you can use. I'm going to teach you about the different speeds that you can get using specific servers depending on your location. I'm going to show you all the different topologies. I'm going to go over the brief explanation of all of the different templates that we actually offer here at LiquidVPN. And I'm basically just going to explain everything, really. So the first thing that you need to do, obviously, is actually download the client. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the client for now. I'm going to bring up Firefox. You can bring up Internet Explorer or Chrome or whatever you're using. And let's go over and head over to the liquidvpn.com website. Just going to type that in there. And we'll just go ahead and go to setup or help and then download LiquidVPN. This is where we can download either the Mac version or the Windows version. It's up to you which version you want to install. So keep that in mind. If you're using Mac, you want to download the Mac version. If you're using Windows, you want to download the Windows version. So I'm going to go ahead and download the Windows version. And since I actually already have this installed, I don't really care about the download myself, but go ahead and download that. And once it's downloaded, you can go ahead and install it. Should be a pretty easy process. I'm actually going to see if I can just go through that real quick right here. Let me just type in my password here. Just click on next, 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 and you can create a desktop icon if you want to. Run application after install is fine. I'm going to cancel and not go any further because I already have it installed, but go ahead and finish that up. It's pretty easy to do. I'm going to click cancel on that for myself, and let's go ahead and open up the client again. And as you can see, this is what it looks like. Really nice. It actually had a pretty big update. The interface has been completely changed. So the first thing I usually do is go into settings here. So if you just click the little gear symbol up at the top right here, just click on settings, and this is where all the magic happens. So there's a bunch of different features that you can enable, and we'll go over those quickly. So first off, the protocol. Obviously, I recommend OpenVPN, but you can do IPsec or L2TP if you want to. It's up to you. Or PPTP or SSDP. I don't recommend PPTP because it's super insecure. But yeah, I highly recommend that you do use OpenVPN. For the topology, we'll go ahead and explain those in a second. But usually I go with modulating since that's the most anonymous and private connection that you can have. Below that there's public, or above that. Public is better for if you're watching game, or if you're playing games with people and you're watching streams on Twitch, or doing a lot of YouTubing or watching Netflix or anything like that. This is really good for that. The speeds are not going to really decrease at all compared to your real broadband connection, so that's good. For OpenVPN protocol, you should go to TCP or UDP. It's up to you. For the OpenVPN port, I just leave it as automatic, but you can choose a specific port if you'd like. For general, this is where all the features are. So VPN kill switch, that's basically a kill switch. So every time you are connected to the VPN and say the connection drops somehow, it just automatically disconnects. You don't know why, it just loses connection to the server, and all of a sudden you're opened up to the internet because all of a sudden now your IP has changed back to your real IP address, and whatever website you're using, or if you're connected to Netflix or something like that, they automatically see that. They automatically see your new IP address because you're still on the site, you're still connected. That's not good, because that's an immediate leakage of your real IP address, and you never want that. So you never want to take that risk. So you always want to enable the VPN kill switch. So I mean, any provider that you're currently using if you're using other providers right now, you should definitely be making sure that they do have that as a feature, because without that feature, you're opening yourself up to a huge risk of leaking your real IP address, and that is never good. DNS leak protection, this basically protects you against DNS leakage, which means that it basically protects protects you from a service or a website from being able to see your real IP address from your DNS, like resolving your IP address through your DNS servers. It basically prevents that from happening. WebRTC protection. WebRTC is basically a browser plugin that lets you watch certain videos and stuff like that. It's like a video and streaming like plugin that you can have that usually every browser has now. I think all of them have it. But there's a bug in it where that actually lets you it actually causes your IP address to be leaked, so you always want to have that protection enabled. And that's the part that's really nice about the LiquidVPN client, is that they actually have these features included in the client. So if you're using something like Chromium, which doesn't have the ability to disable WebRTC, this will do it for you, and you can still use Chromium and not have to worry about that. So it's really nice. Disable IPv6. Pretty self-explanatory. Disable IPv6 so your IP address doesn't get leaked through that. Automatic reconnect when connection drops. That'll basically reconnect to the server every time it drops. It'll just automatically reconnect or try to reconnect. So if you're using that in conjunction with the kill switch, it'll basically, if your connection drops, it'll immediately cut your internet so it doesn't leak your IP, and then it'll automatically try to reconnect to the server. So that's a really nice feature as well. Auto connect when LiquidVPN is started. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory. So whenever you actually launch the LiquidVPN client, it's going to automatically connect to the servers, the server that you have set up on the client. So if you use this in conjunction with launch LiquidVPN on system startup, if you used launch LiquidVPN on system startup by itself without the auto connect, it would basically just launch the program, but it wouldn't actually connect to the server. So, I mean, you might want it to do that, but it's always nice if it automatically launches and automatically connects too. So you want to have both those checks checked off if that's what you're trying to do. Minimize the tray after connecting. That obviously just minimizes the program after you're done connecting to a server, so I would probably use that as well. So if you're going to use all three of these, basically what it would do is it would automatically launch the program on startup, you would see it come up, it would automatically connect to the server. Once it was done, it would automatically minimize the program as if it was never there. So really nice to have all three of those enabled. I don't currently have that all enabled because I like to sometimes turn the VPN off or have it off when I start up my computer, so I don't like to do that, but it's up to you. Check for program updates. Now you should always have this checked. It's good to have everything updated all the time. So yeah, that's pretty much it for settings, so I'm going to click OK on that. I'm leaving it to public right now because it's the fastest, and I usually watch a lot of streams on Twitch and that sort of thing, and Netflix and that kind of thing. So I like to use public most of the time, but if I'm really wanting my anonymity to be a lot higher, I'll use the modulating connection. But anyways, let's go ahead and actually let's go ahead and connect actually, just to show you what it looks like when it connects to it. Alright, so now that we're connected, you can basically see that it's got this time connected thing. This information isn't actually sent to LiquidVPN itself, so you don't have to worry about us being able to tell how long you were connected or when you're connected or anything like that. There's no IP logs, there's no timestamps, anything like that, so we can't actually know this information at all. This is just stored locally on your own machine, and this information is just there for your own sake. So let's go ahead and minimize the client. And let's open up our browser again, and let's head over to liquidvpn.com. And you'll see that there's a link here for topologies. Go ahead and click on that. And this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy description here. There's quite a lot to read here, and I'm just going to go over it really quickly as I can anyway. It's quite a bit of information, but it's definitely worth a read. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of explain the different topologies that we offer and how they differ from each other. So the public VPN tunnel, let me just stop scrolling my mouse like that. I'm used to doing it all the time, so forgive me if I do that a little too much. Dynamically assigned public IP addresses are available in many locations. We recommend public IP connections for day-to-day web surfing, peer-to-peer downloading, gaming, VoIP, and other general activities. VoIP is just activity like Skype or anything like that where you're having voice over IP connections. So yeah, this is basically what you'd want to use if you're like a streamer or something like that. You're streaming content, or if you're playing a lot of games, or if you're talking on Skype a lot, or anything like that. This is a good one to use. Whenever you choose an OpenVPN configuration labeled public, you are randomly assigned your own public IP address. Once you log off, the public IP address goes back into the pool until it is assigned to someone else. So basically, it gets shared among users, but only one person can use it at one time. So it's not like a dedicated IP where it would always be the same address and always assigned to you and not anyone else. So keep that in mind. It is different from a dedicated IP address, which we'll go over later. Because there is no NAT firewall in front of your device with this configuration, we do not recommend using a public VPN tunnel on tablets and smartphones. You should always keep in mind that these public IPs have a one-user public IP ratio, so it is generally considered easier to track a user back to the OpenVPN tunnel using the public IP address they were assigned. So keep that in mind. It is a little bit easier to be traced through this type of connection. So if you really want that anonymity, I would highly recommend that you go with the modulated connection, because it is, again, it's going to be pretty much the same speeds as a public IP VPN connection, because of the way it works. It actually keeps your speed pretty much the same as your broadband connection speed, your normal internet connection speed. It won't decrease it that much, and it has that extra anonymity that you won't get with any of the other topologies offered. So let's scroll down here to shared VPN tunnel. Shared IP addresses are available in all locations. It is the default PPTP, L2TP, SSTP OpenVPN topology. A VPN tunnel on a shared IP is protected from many incoming threats. It is great on mobile devices or when added security privacy is needed. When you use an OpenVPN configuration labeled shared, your encrypted VPN traffic will exit the VPN server on the same public IP address used for everyone else on that server, currently connected to their own encrypted OpenVPN tunnel with a shared IP address. Every time you log on to that server, you will use the same shared IP address. So basically, everyone that's using a shared VPN tunnel, if it's the same server as what you're using, they're going to get the same IP address as you at the same time, and they're going to be using that server at the same time as you, but they have their own VPN tunnel that's encrypted, so you can't see their tunnel. You can't sniff the packets of their tunnel. You can only sniff the packets of your tunnel, and if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. This is just for those of you who do. So basically that means that nobody can spy on your traffic, and even if they could, it's still encrypted, so keep that in mind. Every time you log on to that server, you will use the same shared IP address, so you'll use the same address every time. So every time you connect to whichever server it is that's a shared VPN server, you'll get the same IP address every single time. And it is shared, so many different people are going to be using it at the same time, which means that there'll be increased privacy, because with that many people using the same server at the same time, you can't really pinpoint like who's doing what on that server. So there's a lot more privacy with that aspect. Server firewall, there is a firewall, which is really nice. So it's going to safeguard your device from incoming scans, sweeps, and probes. This is perfect for devices without a good firewall. And but again, there's I mean, not again, but there's no forwarding, so you can't port forward or anything like that since it is a shared tunnel. But yeah, if you want port forwarding, you can do that with public IPVPN topology. So let's go down here to the bottom. I'll save the best for last. So static VPN tunnel. What is a static VPN tunnel? Well, a static VPN tunnel is basically a dedicated tunnel. So if you want to do something like run a website and you always want to have the same address and it's only assigned to you specifically, then you'll want to use a static VPN tunnel. But keep in mind, since it is the same IP address every time and it never gets assigned to anyone else, it's very easy to trace. So this is not something you're going to want to use if you're trying to retain that anonymity that you really want, that you might really want. So yeah, it's not going to be as anonymous, but it is going to be very good if you're like planning on running a server or something like that. Yeah, so advanced setup. Most of the users for static IPs require extra setup on your part, be it opening ports on your firewall, setting up software, or other customized solution. And there's port forwarding as well, of course. I mean, that it's a dedicated server, so you're going to need to open ports. I mean, that's really the only reason you'd be using a server like this, is so you could run a server, and running a server requires you to open ports and that kind of thing. So that's basically what a static VPN tunnel is. Modulating. Modulating is the best one for privacy and anonymity. If you really want to be anonymous online, you really want to have that extra privacy, you're really paranoid, this is the one to use. I'm going to go over the entire thing. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to read this entire description here, all these little descriptions down here, so you can really get a good idea of what modulating technology actually is, because it's very incredible. Modulating addresses are available in most USA locations and EU locations. IP modulation is only possible with OpenVPN. Anyone wanting enhanced privacy or access to lots of public IP addresses will like modulating VPN connections. Whenever you choose an OpenVPN configuration labeled modulating, the public IP your traffic exits from will modulate on new connections. To get a better idea of what will trigger your IP to modulate, here's a list of some examples. Every image loaded on a web page. Every external JavaScript or CSS loaded on a web page. Every new HTML page loaded. Every submit on-click event. Every database query or external call. Any other action that causes a new connection to be made. So pretty much everything. I mean, everything is making a new connection. Anytime you load an image, that's making a new connection. Every time you say send somebody a message in an instant messaging program, that's making a new connection. Every time you receive a message, that's making a new connection. Anything like that, it's always making new connection. So every time you do something on the web, or do something on anything that's connected to the internet, every time you make an internet connection to something through the internet, you're going to be modulating that connection, so your IP address will change, which is really, really incredible, because it's always changing. It's really, really, really hard to track, pretty much impossible. Deciphering or recreating a LiquidVPN user's session when they are using IP modulation and have followed safe browsing best practices would be impossible using any known detection methods. So it's also really, really hard to detect, or impossible to detect, that you're using this type of connection. So it's really amazing. IP modulation 2.0 is much faster than version 1.0, but there's still quite a bit of overhead involved on our servers, and your sorry, I just lost where I was for a second. It's much faster than 1.0, but there's still quite a bit of overhead involved on our servers. And your CPU, expected to be 20% to 40% slower than a non-VPN connection. If you have a slow CPU, the number could be higher. So You won't need that powerful of a computer. It doesn't have to be that crazy. But if you're running like a really old machine, you're probably not going to have that great of a time. Um, Me personally, I'm running a gaming rig, so I do have a bit of power in my computer. Um, I have a 6-core processor, so it's not, the best, the top of the line, sort of mid-range, I guess. It's a lot better than, there's it's a lot better than some people's computers, obviously. Um, but it's sort of mid-range gaming PC. I have a lot of RAM. I have to be honest. I do have like 16 gigs of RAM, which is pretty crazy. Uh, but yeah, you don't need anything crazy like that. If you have like if you have like an for Intel, if you have like I don't know, an i5 and i3, you have like 8 gigs of RAM or even 4 gigs, you're probably gonna do pretty good. It's probably gonna be fine. Um, I don't think your connection will be slowed down too much, but you'll have to test that out and see for yourself. Max security, modulating VPN connections enjoy all the benefits of having a server-side firewall. Furthermore, IP modulation protects your device from any type of threat that requires knowledge of your remote IP address. So, not only do you have an incredible firewall built into it when you connect to the server, you'll also have that, IP anonymity where your IP address is constantly changing. It makes it impossible, or very close to impossible, for an attacker to find out your IP address, which they kind of need in order to actually hack you. So yeah, that makes it even more difficult. Max privacy. No VPN service can enhance internet anonymity like our exclusive modulating IP technology. Even ultra-slow double-hop VPN tunnels are easily traceable by internal staff. So a lot of VPN providers, and I'm not going to, hate on any VPN providers out there. There's a lot of really good VPN providers out there. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They are great. And I'm not going to mention any names either, but there's a lot of VPN providers, and double hops are great. They're better than single hops, obviously. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's basically instead of connecting to one VPN server only, you're actually routing yourself through more than one server at the same time. So if you're familiar with Tor, Tor works in sort of the same way. Tor basically connects you through a bunch of different servers and then finally exits you through the last one, and you're finally able to access the web through that last server. Um, Pretty much works the same way. Tor, it encrypts your connection through all the relays, but on the very last node, your connection is completely unencrypted and open to who's ever running that exit node. So that's never good. With a VPN, that doesn't happen. It's encrypted all the way through. Um, so that's always nice. So it's basically better than Tor because it's encrypted all the way through and you're still getting those multiple hops. And that's great, but it's still traceable because you can still, there's a line of servers that you can just sort of sift through and eventually get back to the source. So it's not, it's not impossible to trace. It is possible to trace. But with IP modulation, the server's always changing, so it makes it, technically impossible. So yeah, that's how it works. Broken websites. Not all websites play nice with IP modulation. On some sites you may find it impossible to log in or stay logged in. Other sites may think you are targeting them with some type of new attack, but IP modulation is usually a benefit to anyone seeking the most privacy possible. So yeah, I mean, with extreme privacy, you're always going to have some issues. I know I do all the time. I've got some seriously advanced privacy configurations on Firefox itself and in my operating system, and it causes me issues all the time that I have to work through. So keep that in mind. Like if you're really going for that extreme level of privacy, you're gonna have some issues, and including the IP modulation is gonna give you some problems sometimes with some certain websites. So keep that in mind. If you're having issues, you can't log into a service, it's just being a pain in the ass, then switch to public. I would recommend switching to public if that keeps happening, at least for when you're using that specific service. So that's how all the topologies work. I hope you understood. how they're all different from each other, how they work. I hope I did a good job at explaining myself. So let's go ahead and head back over to the client here. As you can see, I'm still connected. I've been connected for 15 minutes. I think I showed off where to download this, but I'm just going to go ahead and... Oh yeah, I did actually. I did show off where to download it. Yep, I remember I did that. Okay, so that's pretty much going to be it then. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you need any further support, don't be afraid to contact support. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Someone's always going to be there to help you, so don't you worry. We'll get back to you as quickly as we can. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped. See you next time.